show at Boston Institute and JP Mass. I want to welcome you to our Meetup Higher Ed group, where this is third part in an AI series. I'm looking forward to doing this, being the moderator. I have some interesting questions. And what we're going to be probably doing is the format is we're going to have some questions asked for the panelists, and then we're going to open it up to see if there's any extenuating questions based on those questions or your own jumping off points. And then we have another round of questions that I'd like to ask the panelists afterwards. Also, which during the course of this particular meetup, there'll be probably some polls that'll come up, and we'd love to have you fill them out. And again, we'd love to see what the overall answers are going to be on that. With that said, though, there is a typical other housekeeping stuff, but I'll let Tom chat on that.
Sure thing. Yeah, so as James says, we have a sort of a basic process to these meetup calls. If you folks would like to ask a question or engage in the conversation, you have a lot of opportunities to do that. First of all, you can raise your hand using one of the Zoom tools like that. There you go. You can also put a comment in chat where I will be, chatting with everyone and watching to see what's going on. Or if you're brave and you would like, you can always just turn on your video or turn on your microphone and jump in when the time is right. We do appreciate, though, if someone else is talking, that you keep your microphones muted, and just be respectful of everyone else. That being said, we are also recording this call, so this recording will be sent out to any of the attendees as well as other meetup members. And then shortly after that, it'll also be made to the public. So, don't say anything you wouldn't say on a recorded Zoom meeting. Otherwise, I do believe that's most of the house cleaning or spring cleaning that I need to do at the beginning of the call. We really do appreciate everyone joining us today, and I hope we have a great conversation.
Thank you, Tom. I'd like to, before we go into questions and stuff like that, I'd like to do introductions and let the panelists introduce themselves. And I will start with Emily and then go from there to Frank and then Nuno. Emily, could you introduce yourself?
Yes. So good morning. My name is Emily Laird. I am the AI integration technologist for the University of Wisconsin-Stout and the AI systems consultant to the UW system here in the state of Wisconsin. I'm also an industry consultant through the universities, and I host Generative AI 101, which is a popular generative AI podcast.
Thank you. Frank.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Frank Hughes. I'm the CIO of Cape Cod Community College. I've been here for about 2.5 years, and really since my initial meetings here at the school, AI has really taken off in the education sector. And from our little perspective, from our little school, we've really tried to face it and embrace it. So look forward to talking to you.
Thank you, Frank. Nuno.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see so many of you. Some names I recognize. I'm Nuno Couto. I am one of the founding members of the meetup. I'm also an entrepreneur and a tech advisor within higher ed, as well as an AI advisor. I've been doing higher ed related projects for the last, at this point, almost 20 years focused on higher ed. And with AI coming along, I've developed an opinion, and I'll tell you more about that as we move on.
Well, with that said, this is going to be a question I'm going to ask that's going to be the same question for all three of you. The question is this, and I'll look to you, Emily, to answer it first. The question is this. So we've now seen AI out there in the wild, per se, for the last 9 to 12 months, like hardcore. And that now almost seems every day I'm getting emails about 2 to 3 applications to jump on a website that's all AI being pushed by. With that said, on a scale of 1 to 10, now that you've had a year to either use it, do you find yourself loathing it, scale of 0, to a 10, you just can't live without it and you don't know why it wasn't invented earlier?
Okay, great question. I'm a 10. I can't live without it. I don't know why it wasn't invented earlier. I think I'm more of an AI accelerist in nature. I feel that this is a defining technology similar to compute or electricity that's going to help transition and drive forward Industry 4.0. And I feel like I wish we had had this all along. I think I'm someone who, when I'm not working in institutional spaces, I'm working with a cancer research firm. And I always see AI for good because AI can do so many incredible things. And we had had this longer, could loved ones that I've had that I've lost to curable diseases still be here? Could we have had brilliant scientists who just couldn't write their discoveries in effective ways, have already written these beautiful discoveries and help forge ahead in so much scientific discovery? I see it as the good, and that's why I'm the accelerist in that space. I know there's also the downside and the ethical areas, and we'll dig into that further, but I'm going to align myself with a 10.
Okay. What about you, Frank?
So I'm going to say I'm a 9.42.
Okay.
I'm all on board with it. When I have conversations with faculty, we stress the importance of it being equitable for the students and giving everyone the same opportunities. Personally, I find it extremely helpful when I'm communicating with people. We've used it because our population here on the Cape has changed slightly. We've used it for translation services when someone comes into us and they don't have a grasp of English, but we can ask AI to translate to Portuguese or whatever their native language is. So we're finding different ways to use it way beyond what it was probably intended for. The thing I find frustrating is, a year ago, the rage was ChatGPT, and now there's so many other AI models that I'm getting asked every single day, "Hey Frank, can we have this? Hey Frank, can we use this?" And from my perspective, licensing is the issue. Yes, I want you to use something. I want you to use it ethically, but how much am I going to pay for versus how much are you going to use a free model that has limitations? So this is where that 4.2 comes from. Oh, you're on mute, Chair.
Thank you. Nuno, what about you?
I would say that I am, depending on the day between an 8 and a 10. I truly believe that in the future, the most impactful, effective organizations and people are those that have properly implemented AI and integrated into their systems. I use it on a very regular basis. I evaluate tools for myself and for others really on a daily. I am constantly watching the news. I subscribe to all the various newsletters, etc., and articles. But I do have some concerns, and those are what happens to people along the way. I really think that if the AI can empower people, can put people in a better place, if it addresses bias, privacy, making sure that our core values are accounted for. Yes, absolutely. I'm afraid of those who just say you can replace 10 people in your organization and do the work of those 10 with one person. So that's my
Okay.
my
All
thought.
right. So I think I know what the question I'm going to ask you when I come back to you. But it kind of leads into an interesting question I wanted to ask Emily, and that is, how can institutions foster AI literacy among students as well as promote the responsible use, piggybacking off of what he just said?
Sure. Well, it's a broad question. It's a broad topic, but it's something that I work with every day. And so it really starts with AI literacy for all, but primarily for faculty. And we have in our system, and I'm sure in other systems and spaces and places, we have a digital literacy problem to start with. So we kind of are curbing this digital literacy problem with this new AI literacy problem. And really, it starts with foundational knowledge and understanding. No faculty member can be empowered to work with AI technology if they don't understand what it is, what's available. To Frank's point, I too am in the same scenario where every day there's a new tool that's popping up. It's like I always say AI is like a Russian nesting doll. Like every day there's like this new one inside that I'm like, oh boy, I had no idea we were gonna have to unearth this thing and look at all its security issues. But it's really understanding what's out there, how to engage with these tools. What are the levels these tools have? What does the free tiers offer? What do the paid tiers offer? And then how does that integrate into spaces and places? Now, beyond that, and expanding on it, AI looks different in every industry and every space. There's these core foundational technologies that are involved with AI, and this gets into like a larger AI taxonomy that I've built within the UW system here. But we have to understand that for some folks, machine learning, computer vision, that's AI. And for others, the only way they've ever entered AI is through ChatGPT, which is like this Kleenex of AI to everyone. That's what they assume AI is. But it's a very old field and has a very many little tentacles that come out of it that work its way through different industries. And so really effectively integrating AI literacy into spaces involves integrating it into various majors with what would model industry spaces. And that's the whole thing, and it's very cyclical in that nature. You really have to understand what industry spaces are doing, and then how you can trickle that down to kind of reverse engineer the curriculum to prepare students effectively to move into those spaces so that they understand what will be asked of them or what's an effective way to use it in those spaces. But at the same time, you're always building in this, this ethical balance. But also, I like to say, we try to train our students to never trade their foundational knowledge to a foundational model. So in some of our classes, we've explored technology restrictive spaces or times. We have explored things called a Yonder pouch, which started more in the entertainment sphere. And so I have working on a larger contract with Yonder to bring pouches into all of our UW system spaces, whereas we could have, so just to give you an idea of what a Yonder pouch is, it's a pouch that your phone goes in and it locks with a magnet. You don't have access to it then for the remainder of whatever it might be, a final exam or a lecture or a comedian who is doing a stand-up routine at the university. And this keeps students from engaging with it, but it keeps them from getting into this AI space, and we can truly make sure that we have some boundaries and parameters around what they're doing. So it's all about those various things, and it changes every day. There's always going to be something new. To Nuno's point, there is never a day where I am not feverishly reading or listening or trying to stay ahead of all of this. It is an exhaustive field to work in right now amongst anything else. And yes, there is a lot. There is AGI on the horizon that now I'm like trying to decide if I need to create an AGI Horizon committee to help prepare for when we do finally see artificial general intelligence come in, because I think it will be soon. Yeah, there's just a lot to think about, but it's a really diverse approach, and you really have to take a lot into account.
All right, that's a lot to take in on that, but there was a couple of key points that I'm just curious though. Frank, with what she's saying though, with the number of nesting dolls that are starting to appear every day, and teachers looking at their methodologies of how they teach and stuff like that, how do you respond to those concerns, and what steps do you take to ensure that it's a complement to their pedagogy versus them actually replacing them per se as a teaching tool themselves?
Sure. So I think some of the first conversations that any of us ever had regarding AI was, is this going to replace me? And what we've really focused on here at the school was using it as a tool, no one wants it to be a replacement of anything. We want it to be a complement of what they're using, so that if the faculty member is using AI to help with a curriculum, it can free up their time for mentoring or engagement or some kind of critical thinking with the students. But what we don't want to do is say, okay, this class is completely created by AI. We still need someone to press the buttons, but we don't want the faculty to feel as if they're replaceable. And we don't want the students to feel as if they're not going to get that intuitive interaction with the person. So we're trying to really focus on an ethical use towards AI. And a lot of that has to do with trying to create clear policies. So between the administration here at the school and the faculty, we try to set, all right, what are our policies regarding AI? What training will we give faculty? So we have a department here that I've worked with that has brought in all the full-time faculty to teach them. These are the benefits of ChatGPT, whatever we want to focus on. And then engage them with our policy discussions so that we're not, a long time ago, a professor once said to me, if you're going to do something for me without doing it with me, you're doing it to me. And what we're trying to do with anything that we're incorporating these policies is do it with the faculty, because they have the best interest in those students in mind, but we have, the administration, the best interest of the institution in mind. So how can we combine those so that we're using AI effectively and not giving the impression that it's a replacement?
That's an interesting approach. But then that leads to a question for you, Nuno. Then what governance frameworks then should be implemented, and who guides this responsibility in higher ed field?
I was talking to another CIO yesterday. Hadn't spoken to him for a very long time. We were actually talking about frameworks, and his first response was, "Oh, not another framework discussion." So there are many frameworks out there. Some of the major ones are, the EU AI Act. IEEE has an ethically aligned design. NIST has risk management. ISO has one as well. And they're relatively thorough on risks and the human-centered value and governance. What they usually don't have, or what most of them don't have, is a sort of a connection to the cost savings and the revenue enhancements that so many people talk about, whether it's within higher ed or outside of higher ed. So I've tried to kind of bring together all of those various models and add sort of my own flavor, and I call it the Ethical AI Pro framework, and each letter stands for something. I can't go into detail for all of this, but E is ethical governance, T is transparency, making sure that the ethical folks are not just a committee guiding, but that they're actually embedded in the team itself as one of the core team members. The H stands for human-centered design. So once again, having the users from day one involved, and not just waiting for the test phase and sharing with them your product. Get their perspectives and their input right from the beginning. The stands for integrated privacy, and security and IP protection. C is for compliance. A is for accountable bias detection and fairness. So establishing those audits on a regular basis of what could be going around from a biased perspectives, comparing the answers that your model is giving you, not just once at the beginning, but throughout on an ongoing basis, to what the unbiased answers should be from a different source, from a separate research that you've done. L stands for long-term sustainability, I mean, these models, they use up a lot of electricity and they use up a lot of water. If you're able to, in the beginning, think through which models and approaches you can use that are going to reduce that amount of used electricity, um, water, or other resources, then of course you're making a good solid impact to the environment and to the future. Um, and then the A and the I and that um, uh, ethical AI Pro that I mentioned is basically AI performance monitoring and continuous improvement. And then the big difference, as I said, is the Pro. The portion of that is the profitability, ROI, and optimization. And that means treating ethics as a value creator, not just a cost center. Measuring the outcomes that come out of your ethical practices and accounting for how they actually contribute to revenue growth and customer retention and other metrics, not just cost savings. For example, how do you measure the financial value of avoiding legal and reputational risks? Um, Even McKinsey has said in the past, I'm going to just quote what they said, organizations with robust ethical integration consistently outperformed those focusing solely on technical performance. So anyway, I've spoken enough. I'm kind of passionate about this, but those are my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Nuno. That was a deep, so of course, I'll have to offline have to look into that and chat with you more on that. That's interesting. And from a CTO possession, yeah, another framework. I don't know if I can take another one. But it'd be interesting to see it in the future, though, if any of the current frameworks integrate AI into existing, like NIST. NIST at some point will probably have to factor that in. But I'm just curious, Tom, are there any questions that are out there that have been asked in chat?
Oh, most definitely. And Emily and Frank have already done a great job of answering some of them. But yeah, sure. Let me go to the first one with Jonathan C. asking, well, first of all, saying Gen AI tools are readily available and free to use. Do your institutions allow students, faculty, and staff to adopt any tool based on their preferences? What level of support do you provide? And Jonathan, if you'd like to join the conversation on video, feel free. Or you are on video with your mic as well. I apologize.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, that's it's already readily available. We're seeing it all over the place, and I'm following the Zoom chat too. And students are really far ahead of us. So, how much effort do your institution even put into vetting and providing and evaluating the paid licenses tools when the free versions are already out there? Where Pepperdine is a Google Workspace campus, so we use Gemini. Makes most sense for us to integrate with Google Workspace, and we have been piloting that. At the same time, the paid license version, if you multiply that by 10,000 FTEs, it's not sustainable. It's cost prohibitive. It's not going to say that you have it, you're going to use it, and the free version is there. So I'm kind of curious how much effort you put into the free versions, and how much effort, if any, you put in. It sounds like, Emily, you do offer case by case basis, offer support for paid versions depending on use cases.
Yeah, I'll jump in and just add, I did respond in the chat as I saw your question, and we do offer case by case pilot bases for different tools. So That could be anything from ChatGPT Pro, which we've enacted for some of our library researchers so they could get more familiar with deep research. And then we've also used things like Copilot, Enterprise 365, which we will give licenses to certain business management courses because we want students to do that. We kind of do that also as a pilot with Microsoft as well. So I would encourage you to some of these companies like reach out and you could do pilots with them because they're always like Microsoft is always curious to see how their tools are really integrating. Because I always say these companies design tech, they don't design use cases. And so I think they're always searching and scaffolding for those. The other thing I will add, because it kind of speaks to, I believe, let's see, it was Thomas Thompson in the chat. He's talking about student use cases, or maybe it was Stephen McDevitt was asking about how to address student use far exceeding faculty. What I will give you is a role like mine, someone who is just focused on AI integration and is more of a technologist, but can be that conduit between the AI tech space and your faculty is going to be so pivotal to you. It is a busy job. It is a labor of love. It's death by meetings and trainings, but I will tell you, you need someone like that more than ever right now for your institution, because this tech changes every 3 weeks to 3 months. And you just need someone who's going to stay abreast of it and someone who's going to be able to be in those planning meetings to tell you this is probably where we should start looking, and someone who's also going to be that conduit with faculty to industry spaces to understand what technology they are truly adopting and what makes most sense. And sometimes in those industry spaces, you can find sponsors, and those sponsors will pay for your students to have seats to digital twin software and things of that nature because they want to see students engaging. So I think it's just finding those opportunities for partnerships and leads from industry. That's my 2 cents on that, but I welcome other insights from our brilliant co-hosts here.
Well, yeah, what about you, Frank?
So I would just add that as I work with the faculty where we talk about AI, obviously ChatGPT was the one that everyone was latching onto a year and a half ago or so. And they've asked me about the other ones. What I currently do, wearing my protector of my network hat, is we don't allow them to use our school credentials. We don't want to have an official school chatbot AI follower. We're not there yet. When we are, then yes, we'll purchase a license or we'll purchase an edition that everyone can use and they can log in with their Cape Cod credentials. But until then, we're asking them to use it outside because I have a specific security, a virtual security office. And we've talked about this, and we're still feeling like a lot of these companies are in the infancy for data protection. So yes, I do want people to understand that not only do you have to learn it here, you're going to use it in the real world. From my perspective as a CIO and responsible for the data security of all members, I have to make sure that we're using it responsibly. So we're not to the point where we're going to let them have it. So, but when we do have those options. Are we going to spend for the licenses for Copilot? Are we going to invest in ChatGPT? There's a lot of good that we're excited about, but it's still from a administrative perspective, there's still a lot of things that we're nervous about.
I'm with you, Frank, and I'm exactly there right now from a data protection, data privacy perspective. Hence, my question is very focused on, do we focus on, put effort onto evaluating and vetting tools that we can ensure that data privacy and protection are optimal? Your data is your data, and it will never be used to train other models type thing. And in turn, provide a list of sponsored tools that we can offer our faculty, staff, and students. These are tools you can use. It's not going to stop others from adopting any other tools that they choose, but at least we've gone through that process to ensure optimal data protection, privacy. But it's an effort. You do need to exert multiple efforts.
That is the approach that I've seen with most of the people at universities I've spoken with. Very hard to control, especially what the students do. Um, kind of give up on that to some extent. Provide some principles and some guidance. They may or may not follow it. Um, Somewhat easier to quote unquote control what faculty and staff does, but certainly not too very easy. I have seen thorough investigations of tools, thoughtful, very thoughtful considerations of tools involving security to do a full assessment of those tools, and then providing a list of tools that can be used with, again, some guidance, including the level of data that can be input into the tool. So, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. That's what I've seen the most of.
From our school, and ours is kind of a small institution, I think we're kind of in the same boat as what Frank is that we're kind of allowing people to use it externally with their own credentials, but not signing off on official institutional applications that we back or say we're licensing yet. And that is to ensure that there's a proper understanding of the tools, both from a good and from a bad side. So I, like Frank, also wear my cyber security hat. And if you go in those conferences, in fact, I just had one in Boston a few weeks ago. I mean, it's all doom and gloom because AI is so powerfully smart to trick people that all you hear about now is everybody getting their emails sounding like their Aunt May, because now they can speak eloquently. So there's that kind of scary tactic right there. But with that said, at the same time, it's kind of hard not to give them something, because I want to say, out of all the students, 90% of the students are using AI, and some of the older faculty are like, I don't know how they're using it, but they just created this amazing piece of written document. And it's like, you really need to embrace it, you need to understand it. And then we have other faculty that are like, oh, one course I'm allowing my students to use it, and another one I'm not because I'm doing an A/B testing. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's kind of interesting. So we have a whole myriad of, like, a bell curve, literally, of fear to 100%. They wish they had it yesterday. And me trying to navigate those waters, I wish I had an Emily working for me, but I don't. So I will be months behind Emily in trying to come in with some type of framework, but knowing that there is going to be a framework, that's when I'll end up reaching to Nuno. Is there another question out there that needs to be answered before we maybe jump on to another question for the panelists?
I actually have a question for you. Do you want me to start sending out some of these survey questions? We have a poll that we usually run during our call. So if folks don't mind, you'll get a little pop-up and you can answer the poll if you'd like or not. It's up to you. Is that all right with you, James?
Yeah, we have some poll questions. Be curious to see what the responses are on them. We'll give everybody a minute or two to answer this, and then we'll go
Yeah,
into some questions.
while they're doing that, we did have a question. I think Emily kind of answered it anyway, but I want to give Daniel L. a chance to have their question fully aired on the recording. Have your institutions created dedicated AI roles, or do they use existing staff to focus on AI? And so I think Emily mentioned in chat that yes, she is that dedicated role essentially. But James, you said you don't have anything like that. Frank, I assume that's similar.
We have a learning center, and there are two dedicated faculty members and 2 dedicated administrators that work with our learning center, and they've really taken the faculty lead on introducing AI. So they've gone to seminars, they've done training to faculty. So they've really been our unofficial AI links, whatever you want to call them.
All right, so it's been a minute and 15 seconds. I think we're good to end the poll. All right. and we'll share the results. We will also be sharing the results of these polls after the call, along with the recording and any other resources or links that folks feel free to share in chat.
All right. Well,
Hi, Steve. What's up? You got something to say?
I'm just curious what everybody else in the call. I think there's this huge gap between where our students are, because I'm teaching a class this semester. I sat down with them the week before break and had the real honest conversation of how they're using it. And they opened up and it was amazing. And some of the things I learned about how they were using it, it's like, okay, that's actually a very, very good use. But then there's the flip side, which is, you know, the one student who's very honest is like, I haven't write all my papers, right? And it's like he was pretty honest, brutally honest, including the papers in my class, which I think there's this huge gap right now that's already created in the last year or two between what our students are using, and they're saying they're not using it, but if you watch the traffic across our firewall go into all the AI sites, it's quite amazing. I mean, it's up 200+% comparing week over week, last semester to this semester. And so I don't know how we're going to get the faculty to catch up. And that's I think the hardest part right now. I work for a small Catholic liberal arts college, which there are Luddites, troglodytes, and then there are sort of early adopters. And it really falls into that category. So there's those who just, I have faculty who've gone back to blue books and he said, I know that it's them writing it because they're sitting in my class with a pen and paper. And there's an educational component of that, which that's a really awful situation for many students, because that's just not the way they've sort of been brought up in their education. And so I don't know the answer to this. And then the last point is, and this is I'm going to pick on Nuno for a minute. I think the privacy horse has left the barn, completely left the barn. And I go back to 2005 to 2007 when we were all talking about privacy and social media and all this other stuff. And, today and especially in the United States, you have nearly zero control over your private information. Meta makes $50 billion a quarter on ads, that they're basically, feeding into your brain. And so I understand there's a privacy component. I understand there's like a corporate privacy component, which is different than a personal privacy component, but it's more complicated than I think anybody is grasping right now. And how do we imagine all this, as well as, and at the pointy end of the sword right now is I have, 2,000 students who are sitting in their entire life sitting on ChatGPT or DeepSeek or Claude right now, doing all their schoolwork and thinking they're going to come out of the other end with a well-rounded liberal arts education with critical thinking and analytical skills, when somebody else is already doing all the work. I'll be quiet now.
Thank you, Steve. No, I mean, I don't think we're on part 3 of this series, and I think we can all generally agree that there's no definitive answer. There's definitely no right and no wrong, and there's this huge gap is the gray area, because we're still learning, and AI is evolving every day to a new level of leaps and bounds that then just changed my, yesterday's decision to do this, and now tonight I got to change it to do this. And with that said, I'm noticing that we have about 15 minutes left. I want to have enough time for questions at the end for more people that are on. So if I may, I'm going to ask a general question for all 3 of you, and if you could just take 1 or 2 minutes to answer it. And that is, hearing what we're talking about in the complexity of both acceptance and the usability, both from staff and students, what do you think is going to be the hardest part going forward? Is it the acceptance of usage? Is it the training of privacy? Is it more so the knowledge that you still have to learn and not rely on AI to be the wherewithal for everything? Emily, I'll lead off with you.
Sure. Yeah, it's a challenging question. I think it's all about creating an environment where, an education is gonna shift and it's gonna change and it's gonna feel this impact of AI. It really is. And there's always this thing in life where the pendulum swings one way, it swings the other way even further. And I think eventually we'll have cheaper knockoff institutions or trainings or corporate focused upskilling that's strictly AI created. That's one swing. Okay. On the other end of the spectrum, I was just telling friends at Harvard that you're going to have this thing where Harvard only sets this baseline, and this is hypothetical, they've not come out and said any of this, where they only have real human faculty. And it's the selling point. If you go to Harvard, you only get real human faculty, and you get this one-on-one, and you get these really great class size to faculty member. But I think it's finding this balance when you're eventually going to have AI natives entering the college environment, and they've had personalized tutor systems that they've worked with, personalized tutors that their parents have paid for that are AI tutors, right? Since they were in high school, and now they want to bring it into your higher education environment. And so leveraging or controlling that is going to become more and more of a challenge. So as time progresses, colleges will have to impact and shift and change to create environments that not only allow and accept AI, but also control it in ways that is transparent and comes with a level of understanding that you do have to truly come out of this space with foundational knowledge in a sphere. So in our university, for example, one of the examples is our robotics students don't receive any use of calculators in classes because we have to ensure they actually can do the math, because at the end of the day, when you're programming a robot, you need to know the math. So it's going to be a shift. It's something that higher education has never seen before. AI is the biggest double-edged sword we've ever put into higher education. And I can truly say we can't do it alone. It takes everyone's involvement, from faculty to staff to those in instructional spaces and leads, to really create an environment that's primed to shift, change, and evolve to support this and to position it to be held when it needs to be.
I like that point, and I think that's what's going to end up definitely happening. There's definitely going to be a marriage, so to speak, between faculty and staff, as well as students. And that commingling is going to generate some type of verbiage that everyone will be able to hopefully understand and maybe perhaps agree upon going forward, or at least giving at least a voice of where to start, at least. What about you, Frank?
So, Emily, it's interesting you mentioned the calculators. I'm going to do a very low-tech display here. I'm belong to a Facebook group about old pictures of Boston, and I don't know if anyone can see this. This showed up. It's faculty, teachers protesting the use of calculators in schools back in the 80s. And I kind of liken that to where we are growing with AI now. It's that unknown. What will it lead to? What will this become? What will I have to do after the schools to using these as tools? So back to your original question though, Jim, I think it's a learn and not rely. Learn how to use it ethically, learn to use it, learn to teach it with an equality that everyone can kind of learn along the same basis. From my perspective as a professional, some people would question that. I use it in my correspondence with the community here. I want to make sure that I send them out a clear message that has no ambiguity. From a personal perspective, I'm very involved in the community theater groups here on the Cape. I wanted to direct a show this coming year. I wanted to give a presentation to one of the theaters here on what my show is, and I asked AI to generate what my stage would look like. And after 4 or 5 iterations of what that was, it gave me enough of a representation of what I wanted to make my set look like. So when I presented in front of the deciding body, they had an idea. Now, is that what my set will be? Absolutely not. It's already changed a half dozen times when I speak with the carpenters and when I speak with my producers of the show. But what it did was it gave me that leg up. It gave me that one little tool where I could have run to the Michaels and try to draw something, and you don't want me to draw anything. But I could ask AI to do it for me, and it helped me. It assisted me. It leveled the playing field with me and somebody that might have some kind of artistic license that could create a 3D set or some kind of painting of what they wanted to build. So from my perspective, it's really about learning to use it right and giving everyone the tools to share, to teach, to give everyone the use of it, so it's equitable and fair across the board.
Okay. But then, Nuno, what is your take on that? If I may, I'm going to expand a little bit then. With your governance background and your thoughts on ethics and all that, do you see um, any roadblocks along the way, or do you concur with Emily and Frank?
I agree generally with both Emily and Frank. I was really thinking deep as to your question, and honestly, it almost makes me a little emotional because I, I think we're about to see changes that are that most of us can't really imagine. Um, I think the biggest challenge is going to be, as Emily mentioned earlier, what are you going to do when AGI arrives? What are you going to do when these things are smarter than any one of us? And when SGI, super general intelligence arrives, people say that, and I'm not sure if I believe it, but people say that super general intelligence will be um, smarter than all of us put together. I mean, what are you going to do when you have like a godlike sort of a tool available to you? I mean, it really certainly democratizes intelligence. Um, However, what does that mean for universities? I can see students saying, I don't even need a degree. I've got it in my pocket, right? Um, so I think what Emily said earlier in terms of starting to put together a group of people to think about this, and really it's not just the impact on the university, it's the impact on society. Um, and I think all of us need to think about that. It can certainly produce, I mean, amazing and wonderful things in terms of scientific breakthroughs and, life extension, health extension type of discoveries. But what's it going to do to each of us? Like I said earlier, I do research on this stuff not all day, every day, but certainly a large portion of my days. I really enjoy this. I am able to do things now that it would in minutes that would have taken me personally hours, if not days to do. Like I don't know if anyone's played with deep research from ChatGPT. There you go, there's Steve. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And beyond that, and I don't recommend you put any sort of private information or any sort of organizational information into this tool that I'm about to mention, but Manus AI just came out, and it's a Chinese tool, so again, be very cautious. When I used it, I put absolutely completely generic information, but not only does it do the research for you, it creates the website for you. So if you tell it, for example, if you tell it, I want to research blah, blah, blah business, and I want you to generate a business model, and I want you to create the website, it literally creates the website for you. Like, what? Um, so a long answer to your question, but it's one of the challenges, adapting, adapting to all this.
Are there any people out there that have questions or their own spin from their own experience at their institution that they would want to add for
Just
further
want to
like
mention Frank has his hand up.
discussion? Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, since we're talking the panel, and it seems like we're all into or using AI in one way or another. When you have a chat with AI and you're asking them a question, do you think it afterwards? No. More people
No,
I know
I do.
will write
I
back, I
do
do
think
too.
it.
I
I
I
have
will
think
a
it
say thank you.
I
beforehand.
have a oh good. I have a 3-year-old, and I watched a TED Talk years ago that our younger generations learn from the way we engage with artificial intelligence. So like the smart devices in our homes. And I didn't want my daughter to start to engage with how rude and straightforward I was with Siri. And so I've made a point to talk to it more human, to honor
Yeah.
my human communicative skills as well, and to be a good role model to my daughter. So that's why I thank it, and I've just stick to that practice.
Me too.
We have a couple of minutes left. Any questions from the audience in regards to what you just heard today, or your own experience, or what you're seeing as a particular view coming from your staff, faculty, or students on the use or acceptance of AI?
Can I just share one little anecdote?
Sure.
Go ahead. And then I think Steve had his hands up.
So I sent my daughter a picture of the Roadrunner R2-D2 and Beaker from the Muppets having a conversation, and a truck was backing up. So everything's beeping, right? And they can't hear the truck because they're all beeping. My daughter didn't get it. I tried to explain it to her. She didn't get it. So I just put the picture in ChatGPT and I said, can you please explain this to my daughter? It gave me such a great explanation in 25 words that when I sent that to her, she goes, oh, why didn't you just say that?
From a research standpoint, I use AI as a tool to supplement what I already know. But with my research background, I mean, I have my own personal library at my house is over 3,000 books. I'm an avid reader. So I'm not relying 100% on the results that are going to be true. So I'm like any book, I have reference endnotes. I'm like, okay, I'm going to cross-reference that. All I'm saying is like, I like the AI in the sense that in your perspective, it speeds up my research time in the sense that what would take me 8 hours, I can now condense into 3 to 4, which gives me now 4 hours to do other type of stuff. It helps me in that regards. But I never 100% assume that whatever I get back is accurate, especially if it's an area that I'm brand spanking new in. Then I'm doing cross checks. So
I think Steve, did you have your hand up? No. Okay, we're good.
I was just going to say, I'm a big fan of deep research. It's the best $200 I spend a month. We had a internal task of like just reviewing all of our internal policies, and that's actually a really good use of. It's like what is a 2025 IT security policy and plan look like for a small liberal arts college? I could spend a lot of money and get a consultant like Nuno and pay way too much to get it done. But the first pass, it got me to 90% there. And, covering all the requirements, GLBA, FERPA, HIPAA, PCI, and, it's that kind of use. And again, not putting anything about the college in, but just asking a general question about if I was going to formulate a policy around this small Catholic liberal arts Benedictine New Hampshire college. And the first pass out of the box was worth the price of admission. So
yeah, I can definitely see it helps us in that regards when we're working with frameworks and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's at the top of the hour. I want to say thank you to the panelists very much for your time. It's valuable. I want to thank the people who attended. Thank you very much. I hope you gained a lot of information, more than likely probably created more questions. But again, the meetup, we definitely will be posting the recording, correct, Tom? At some point.
Absolutely. I'll be sharing the recording as well as other resources that have been dropped in chat or mentioned during the conversation.
Yeah, there were questions about, can we get some resources about frameworks and stuff like that? That's for the meetup. Definitely you're going to want to give it a few days and go back to the meetup.com site and look for the additional information that we'll post up there.
I'll also send it via email.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm going to sign off, and I want to say thank you very much. It was great seeing everybody. I want to thank you, Emily. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Nuno. This was amazing. And I look forward to our next meetup.